Before we talk about setup lines, we need and title lines, which is so important. I need to make sure that you guys are able to identify where the title line is in a song. Be able to articulate that. And so it's eventually you don't want to have to write it down. You can just, again, learning to listen better. You'll be able to hear a song and go, and when it's over, go, oh, 2 verses, chorus, post-chorus, 1 verse, solo, bridge, half a chorus out. You know what I mean? You'll be able to do that. But until then, write it down on a, I don't care. The book's good, and another piece of paper is good too, a notebook or something. So I'm going to play some of these songs, a few that we listened to last time, and I want you to write down the form. Now we're going to get into form here real soon, AABA, bridge form, all that stuff. But before we can talk about what a setup line is and a title line, I want to make sure that you guys know what the title is and where it shows up. So when you're listening to these songs, be able to say, oh, title is at, don't even worry about the setup line. Where is the title? And you'll be able to say, oh, it's at the end of verse 1 and at the end of the chorus. Or it's at the top of the chorus and the bottom of the chorus. Or whatever. And there's lots of different places the title can show up. But if you're listening only for title placement, then you're really focused on this intentional listening. That I think is so important. Not listening for, oh, I like that chord change, or, oh, what is she saying there? It doesn't matter. Find out, just try to, it's hard. Try to not listen to everything else and just try to like guess where the title's coming, because if it's written well, you can tell. Like, here comes the title. This is the reason I'm listening to the song for 68 seconds. Ah, there it is. You can tell if it's written well, it's set up for those reasons, usually with a setup line that we've talked about. That rhymes with the title, right? But be able to listen to the song going down and write it down on your page. Okay, verse 1. Okay, another verse 2, all right? Oh, chorus. Oh, there's the title at the end of the chorus. Title, end of chorus. Verse 3, whatever it is, okay? So I'll know that you guys, and you'll know that you know what verses are and choruses are and where they show up. But title placement this is very important, title placement can create form. We're going to talk about chorus forms and AABA forms, but title placement creates form, because if you're putting titles in certain places, all of a sudden there's the form. Oh, it's A, chorus, O. So we'll start with an easier one here. Baby Needs Some New Orleans. This is probably the easiest one. Okay, now, you asked a good question last time about what's form and structure. And structure is what's inside the form, okay? This first song we'll play is a verse-chorus form. They have verses and choruses. And even a bridge is in there. But the structure is how many verses?
The details.
Yeah, if the form is a house, if the form is a house, then the structure is the layout. How many rooms? Oh, here's a hallway. Maybe that's the bridge. There's a hallway. Oh, into another room. What's inside the form is the structure. What's inside a house? We all know what a house is. But what's inside the house, and they can all be very much different.
Kind of like blueprints.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So that's a good analogy, I think. All right. And so part of the structure that we're not going to deal with right away is intros. You can start a song right on the downbeat. Start. But usually there's an intro, right? And if you want to write that down, that's okay too, but that's not the important thing. The important thing are verse, choruses, those formal things. Intros, turnarounds, outros, solos, those are more structural things.
How about interludes? Or just like begins with music?
Oh, well, that would be an intro. I'd call that an intro. You can write it down if you want to. Now you're writing structure, but the form is, like I told you, this one's a verse-chorus form. So just write down where the verses and the choruses are. And I think there's a bridge that shows up too. So in verse-chorus forms, you have verses, choruses, and bridges as the form. The structure would be intros, turnarounds, solo sections, outros. It makes sense? Okay. So really what I'm most interested in is the form, verse 1, verse 2, whatever it is, and where the title shows up. So the structure is there. There's intros, there's turnarounds, you know. But the overall form, did you get it? Anybody get it the first time through? What's the form? And where does the title show up? That's all. Don't worry about the setup. That's too much. Okay, you had an intro, which is not part of the form really. That's a structural thing. Okay, verse 1, correct? The title's at the end of verse 1. Yep. Then chorus 1, title's at the end of chorus 1. So this is a common title placement thing, end of verse, end of chorus. This is very common. You'll hear it in a bunch of songs. Now you'll know what to listen for. Title, end of verse, end of chorus. That's a real common structure. If we put it at the top of the chorus and the bottom of the chorus, it might have been too much. You heard it at the end of the verse, you don't want to hear it again. So that's a nice thing. Okay, verse 1, again, verse 1, the title's at the end of verse 1. Chorus 1, the title's at the end of chorus 1. Verse 2, same thing. The title's at the end of verse 2. Chorus 2, well, same thing. So the title's at the end of chorus 2. So you could say the title placement is, so far, it's end of verse, end of chorus. That's what this is. Okay, then we have a bridge, and it's interesting too because it's actually at the end of the bridge too. She's gonna find a little air to breathe. She don't need no New York scene. Baby needs some New Orleans. There it is again.
Are we talking about the bridge?
Yeah, it's at the end of the bridge. And then chorus 3, same thing. It's at the end of chorus 3. And another section called the tag, which just repeats. Tags do a lot of things cool. The least that they do, the most fundamental thing that they do is just repeat the title again. We're going to learn a lot about tags. I love tags. You can do a whole lot with tags, believe it or not. So that's a real common form. And we could shorten by saying that end of verse, end of chorus. In this case, end of bridge too, which is cool. That's like title placement can create form. It's a verse chorus form, right? Overall, it's a verse chorus form. And the title placement is end of verse, end of chorus. Again, that's the shorthand, you know, everything. We talked a lot, but really the shorthand version is, top of end of verse, end of chorus, title placement. Really important. So now you know what to listen for, where the setup line might be, because it's going to be right before the title.
Right.
Is it getting clearer? Okay, going back, learning where the title is important. Okay, let's do it again. Let's do it another one. Same idea. Form, this is another verse chorus form. Where's the title? Don't worry about the setup lines. You'll hear them, and that should, you hear a setup line, you're like, oh, here comes the title. So, you hope anyway. Going back to our titles, just for a second, forget about the form, going back to our titles, it's a literal and figurative title. Am I the only thing you've done wrong? Mean played around on me. Mm-hmm. That's the figurative. Mm-hmm. You've done me wrong. Mm-hmm. Am I the only thing you've done wrong? And the literal is actual action that he's done. He's done everything perfect in life as far as action goes, his job, the house. He's never made a mistake there. Everything's been right. So you got both sides of that meaning. Is so powerful. Here's what I got. Verse 1, title's at the end of verse 1. You got the chorus. It's at the end of the chorus. Even though at the end of the chorus, that other section, in your long line of successes, it feels like it's really the verse melody. It's at the end of the verse melody.
That's what I got.
But I wouldn't call it verse. It's not a verse. It's just the melody from the end of a verse. It's still part of the chorus, I would call it. Okay, end of chorus. The title's at the end of the chorus, which is that short little 4-bar section that sounds like the end of a verse, which the melody is the end of. Then you got verse 2, no title, which you noticed. That's really cool. It's a great example of expectation, surprise, and inevitability, which is what great songwriting is. And then you have another chorus again, and it follows that same pattern, which is the title's at the end of the chorus, and then the tag. The title's there too. Did you get it? And it usually will show up, not always, but it usually show up in patterns of 4 or 2. It's in a very stable position. See, 4 is stable. If you have 4 lines, that's a stable, 3 is unstable. 3 wants to move to 4. Everything is seeking rest, even in songwriting. It's amazing. I mean, in everything, including our lives, everything is seeking rest. And 2 feels stable. It can stop. 3 wants to keep moving forward. 3 wants 4. And so you had 3 lines led to that 4th line that went, poof, it just stopped. It felt complete. Okay. And it also rhymed with that line, which makes it even more stable. And so you'll learn that, not here, but that's an advanced thing, but you'll learn that, and this is what's beautiful about stable and unstable lines. Check this out. This is about being intentional. Let's say your verse is about, I can't make up my mind. How many lines would support that?
I'll say
3. If your first verse is about, and I'm not saying what the exact words are, but the first verse is, maybe the song's called I Can't Make Up My Mind, which is a pretty good title. Your first verse is going to be about, I'm agitated, I've got too many choices, I don't know which one to, I can't make up my mind. What is a good form that supports that?
4 lines.
No.
Well, what?
No.
That supports that? Oh, a good form that supports that?
How many lines in the first verse would support that unstable feeling?
Well, if he said
3.
3,
Yeah.
then
3. And then the 4th line would be the...
No, the 4th line would be whatever. There's no 4th line. I'm just talking about the first verse.
Okay.
Verse 1, the song's about, I can't make up my mind. I'm unstable. I'm not rested. My footing is not there. All right? 3 lines would support the feeling of that.
because it's unstable.
Exactly. Yeah. That's cool. And if you didn't do that, the listener probably wouldn't believe it. There's just something that's not quite believable about
But
it.
then would the 4th line be your hook?
Not
necessarily.
I'm not in this case, unless you wanted it to be. But there is no 4th line. I'm talking about the first verse having only 3 lines in it. Most have 4 or 8, but this not most. But this has a 3-line first verse,
And that gives you that feeling of instability. Instability.
which is what it's about.
Right.
See, the form supports the emotion. That's really cool. Check this out. What if the first verse was about, I can't find my footing, I feel unstable? 3 lines, right? Chorus, until I found you. Now I'm at home. How many lines?
Right. That's back to 4.
4. Verse 2, but I still can't trust you. 3 lines.
Yeah.
Different chorus. But I want to, and I think if we pull together and believe in each other, then we can make this work. 4 lines. Setup lines. We know what setup lines are? It's the line that rhymes with it's the line that rhymes with the end of the title. The end of the setup line rhymes with the end of the title line. The chorus goes like this. Yeah, but now I'm dodging potholes in my sunburnt Silverado like a heartbroke desperado headed right back to my roots. Something about the way she kissed me tells me she'd love Eastern Tennessee. Yeah, but all I brought back with me was some sand in my boots. What's the title?
Sand in my boots.
Yeah. The whole reason these 4 lines are there is to deliver the point. And the point is sand in my boots. So the setup line is interesting. There's the setup line, roots, but then there's a line in between it. Right?
Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah, but now I'm dodging potholes in my sunburnt Silverado like a heartbroken desperado headed right back to my roots. Yeah, but all I brought back with me was some sand in my boots. That would be what we've learned. Title line, a setup line, title line. But there's a line in between that. Now I'm dodging potholes in my sunburnt Silverado like a heartbroken desperado headed right back to my roots. Something about the way she kissed me tells me she loved Eastern Tennessee. Yeah, but all I brought back with me was some sand in my boots. There's a line in between those two. Yes, so the setup line doesn't have to be right next to the title line. It can be one removed, but it rhymes with the title. Setup lines rhyme with the title. Often enough, perfect rhyme, but not always. And we talked about why perfect rhyme, because it sounds truer, it's easier to remember, it snaps its tail, it just, and it just says this is the title, if you weren't sure. I'm hoping you got a hook book full of titles that are getting more and more in your hook book by slang dictionaries and all those, and listening and all the song titles you had before you came in class and all this thing, and keep compiling song titles. And you can sit alone with these song titles and come up with setup lines away from the guitar, away from a co-writer, away from music. You could do it 15 or 20 minutes a day and you'll feel like a songwriter all day long. You can sit with your hook book and flesh out some of these titles with setup lines, and even if you just have one, if you had one setup line with a title that encapsulates the whole idea of the song, that's all you'll need to jump into it next time you sit down with a co-writer or sit down with yourself. And what's the hard habit to break? What was one of the good lines that we liked?
Okay.
Hard,
Well, the one
what if,
here is there's only so much I could take. The other one
But
was
you-
I was caught in your way.
okay, let's go with that, which is pretty obvious, which is good. Okay, you're more than I can take, but you're a hard habit to break. If you just wrote that down in your hook book and came back to it a year later, you go, oh, what if we did this? And the whole song is going to be about habits and addictions and things that are bad for you, but you can't put them down. That's all you got to write about. And if you can make it a relationship song, which this should be, then that's even better. That's the first place you should probably go, relationship. And so if you have so even just starting with that, there's the whole song encapsulated in that very idea. Now, you'll probably need more than one couplet, one setup line with a title line. If you have a couple, caught in your wake, you're a hard habit to take. You're like a piece of chocolate cake, girl. You're a hard habit to break. That's kind of cool. Let's say you had those three, cake, wake, and take. There's the whole song. Now you just place them in positions that you intuitively kind of learn, like you're going, oh, end of verse, end of chorus, just like that one song. Or, see, you don't really hear it at the top of the chorus. The very beginning of the chorus, you wouldn't hear, you're a hard habit to break. Maybe you would, but it's not, it's telling me, after years of doing this, that that's not where that belongs. It seems like it might be at the end of the verse, into the chorus. Mm-hmm. Just like, you hear that? You feeling that? Kind of like,
That's where it resolves.
huh?
Kind of where it resolves, basically.
Where it resolves, yeah. End of verse, and this feels like it could be the end of verse, end of chorus, just like, am I the only thing you've done wrong? It's kind of like that song. That would work. That would really be a good template. That's why you listen to these songs intentionally, be able to, listen for the title line, be able to articulate where it is, whether you have to write it down or not, and then listen for the setup line with the title line. And you do that enough, and you have those hooks, you have that in your hook book, you'll look at that, and when you sit down, that form will emerge. And you'll go, yeah, what if end of verse, end of chorus? Or end of the two verses and not in the chorus, depending, And that's an intuition that you have to earn. See, here's the beautiful thing about it. And what I was telling you about, it's not, you got a title called Hard Habit to Break. You don't have to go, what is this about? No, what rhymes with break? I mean, take. What rhymes with take? You're a hard habit to, break. You're a hard habit to break. I'm not asking myself, oh, what is this about? Let's see, I'll write about when I was 15 and I started smoking. Okay, if you're a singer-songwriter and you want to do that, okay, yeah, sure, you know. If it's, but I don't start, and again, this is a different method. I don't start at the top and write down to the title. I take the title, find a setup line that works through the idea. You're a hard habit to break. Obviously, that's probably going to be about a relationship. He's with someone he or she, he's with the girl that he knows it's not good for him, but it's a hard habit to break. Okay, if that's the idea, then rhyming words like more than I can take, you're a hard habit to break, take. Coming up with that rhyme gives you the line. You don't think of the line, it actually kind of happens all at the same time. You're a hard habit to break, hard habit to break. I'm thinking, take. Oh, you're more than I can take. I would write that down. You're more than I can take. You're a hard habit to break. You're like a piece of chocolate cake. Cake. Piece of chocolate cake. Wake.
Mistake was the one I...
Oh, mistake is great. Another hard mistake. Yeah, that's real good, mistake.
I know I'll make a mistake, but you're a hard habit to break.
This is just, I know this is a mistake, but you're a hard habit to break.
Yeah, that's good.
So you have 3 or 4 of those, you got the whole song. Now you just write the first verse down to that couplet, maybe write the second verse down to that couplet. Maybe it's at the end of the chorus, you write the chorus down to that couplet. Maybe the first verse is, I've tried to get off cigarettes most of my life. Or, I quit smoking when I was 16 and it was the hardest thing I'd done till I met you. You know, whatever it is, right? Yeah. It limits you. It limits you in a good way. It's freedom. There's a lot of freedom in that. Instead of what is this about? Starting at the top, you know, and all that. Now, when you get really good at this, you really are sort of writing 360 degrees. You are kind of seeing it. Basically, what we're doing here is you're looking at the trees. When you get really good at this, you're looking at the forest, and you know the trees are there. I'm looking at a title like that with 360 degrees. I'm looking at setup lines, I'm looking at the form, I'm already thinking what the first verse could be about. You're really looking at the forest, but you know what the trees are. Like the setup line and title line. It's those structural things that are inside the forest. But when you get good at this, you're looking at the whole thing 360 degrees, 30,000 feet above, and you kind of go, and that comes in real handy when you're trying to justify, is this worth writing? When you get really good at this and you're maybe writing with a co-writer, you might go, hard habit to break. Take, for heaven's sake, she's a hard habit. Piece of cake, left me in her wake. More than I could take, she's a hard habit to break. Yeah, what else we got? You might go, yeah, done that. Wrote that last year. So-and-so, it's on the radio now, kind of. Yeah, it's okay, it's good. Yeah, okay. And the next day you might go, oh, I love it, depending on how you're feeling. But you kind of get this, you can, what I call feel the future. You can feel the future on an idea. Go through these setup lines, take, fake, rake. You can almost tell what it's going to be. You can almost see it to the very end and go, yeah, okay, we'll write it that way, but what else we got? Let's look at something else. And you keep it in your hook book. You do it the next year, and somebody maybe sees a different way in that you had never thought of, and you go, oh, I love that, you know. So it teaches you you can say no more often and go, yeah, it's okay. Because your standards are pretty high. Like, yeah, it's pretty good, but it's not great, is it? It's okay. And what we just went through, were they great? No. They were okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, the setup lines were great, but the idea, okay, right out of the blue, you're a hard habit to break. How many times has that been written? Yeah, okay. But you should probably you could write those anyway, and you should. And you miss them sometimes. I could be saying, yeah, that's not so good. What else we got? And then a year later, someone will write it. I go, oh, I didn't see it that way. I love that. Oh, man, I should, But you can learn to say no to ideas that maybe aren't as good as where you are now. Does that make sense? You learn to kind of feel the future. You can already see it written. You go, I know where this is going. And it's not going to end up that way. It's almost like you know where you're going, but you kind of know where Murfreesboro is, that one place in Murfreesboro. I've been there, I think, but I know how to get there, And then you discover things along the way that you hadn't seen, and that's interesting, but you kind of know where this song is going to be. And you can either go, yeah, I love it, let's do it. And then you devote a lot of time and energy and possible money for demos or whatever into it. But it does this method does a lot of things right, and it is fun. And you can, again, you can work on hook, you can work on your setup lines and title lines away from an instrument. You can flesh out 3 or 4 in a half an hour and feel like you're a writer all day long. I used to sit in the mall all the time. I don't do it as much. Sit in the mall all the time because I like that action. I like people around me, but they're leaving me alone. I like enough. I mean, a lot of writers have, written a lot in cafes, and there's a reason why people like to write and read and stuff around other people, but they're being left alone. That's been a thing forever, and I love that. I used to sit with my hook book, and before the week of writing ahead, go there on a Sunday and flesh out some titles, and setup lines and little elevator pitches. This could kind of be about the girl that's a she's like nicotine, hard habit to break. She left me in her wake. Maybe the second verse is about a boat. She's a whatever, See, you write those little things out, and then when you have an appointment with a co-writer, you're prepared, and you hit the ground running. After you get your second cup of coffee, you're like, well, I got this thing here called Hard Habit to Break. Oh, yeah, I like that, Steve. What are you thinking about? Well, left me in your wake, and oh, it's about yeah, I like that too. What if we started out, and then now you're getting to work, It focuses you on what this song can be about, what the title is, and what the song, you're crafting it. You see it as a real craft and less of a, the muse, which obviously happens, but you got to get it started somehow, and the craft has to take control, take precedent in importance. At some point, it's about putting all this stuff together. And I know it maybe doesn't sound as mysterious and as sexy and as artful as, just kind of waiting for the song to come to you. But at some point, it is about the craft, So I like to start there, and the inspiration comes from the work, not before the work. Absolutely happens. That's why you never have writer's block, ever, with this method. You just get tired. You say, I don't want to write these anymore. I'm going to take a week off. Yeah, you just get tired of the mental work, somewhat. But or you just write instrumentals. Make sense?
Yep.
Do this with your hook book and these titles. Write some setup lines that justify the title, that pay off the title, that nail it, that's what this is about. The song can be about this. Write 3 of them, 2 or 3 or 4 setup lines, however many you want, and choose the best ones. But don't worry about writing a song yet. We're going to do that. And you probably, when we get to writing full songs, if that happens, then you'll be using these in your song, these setup lines and title lines.